Bonjour, this is Jasmine. Thank you so much for stopping to smell the roses en vous, madame. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood, I'm a writer, a storyteller, and a community builder. I write about culture, politics, parenthood, and my life here in France. Today, I'd like to talk about racism and actually defining it because in mainstream media, we typically think of racism as a single act that you can see and measure with just a glance. For example, the horrible case of the death and the murder of George Floyd. It was visible and it was black and white, literally and figuratively. But I think this simple definition, is probably the biggest problem we need to, or the biggest hurdle we need to get over. So this video is to really just upgrade. Let's upgrade. I'm here to upgrade you. Or because I'm constantly trying to upgrade myself. Because I get things wrong and I always try to look within or to really be introspective. And that's what my blog is about. That's what my universe is about, is to help or to find fellowship in the introspection. And I get a lot of my thought process and my thinking from scholars and people I respect and love personally also. But I love Dr. Robin DiAngelo's way of thinking about racism as not a singular act of a person being mean or mean-spirited or hateful because of someone's race. That is a part of it, definitely. But instead of thinking of a lone case or a single act, think of it as a system, which I think a lot of people are already on the board, on the ship, on the boat, that's what racism is. It's not, oh, he said this word or he said this joke or he did this, he's racist. It's kind of like all around us 24/7. So it's not like it can stop and go depending on the situation. It's always going nonstop. And the reason why I wanted to really dive into it, because I'm currently reading the book Homegoing by Yajiasti. And I'm reading it and I came to one of the chapters that was in, it was not post-slavery, it was before the Civil War started. And that's where we're at in the book. It started in Africa with a family who was a part of the slave trade, and later on their offspring leads us to in the southern states that were primarily responsible for the trade of the enslaved people. So I'm reading, it's really good, really just brings you to that time. It's like you're like a window into that time. It's very vivid as far as the imagery. But I came to this paragraph and I had to stop. I said, okay, I have to make a video about this. It's like the author was looking into the future and was like, this is going to happen in 2020. So I'm going to just put it in the book, because this book came out, I believe, in 2016. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I read it and I'm like, oh my God, that's happening like right now. I have to so I'm going to read the passage to you and we'll discuss after. It says, there were rallies and protests throughout the North, and not just among Negroes. White people were joining in like Joe had never seen them join in about anything before. Foreshadowing. It's like, okay, that's happening right now. And she continues, the South had brought this fight to the Northern welcome mat when many of them had wanted nothing to do with it. Doesn't it sound a lot of people, a lot of states, a lot of, governments, local and the Fed wants nothing to do with, the tensions and nothing substantial, as far as policy. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to step on anybody's toes, offend anybody, particularly their white constituents. And it says, now white people could be fined for giving a Negro a meal or a job or a place to stay if the law said that Negro was a runaway. And how were they to know who was a runaway and who was not? It had created an impossible situation. And those who had been determined to stay on the fence found themselves without a fence at all. The last sentence there is what made me think and react the way I'm acting now. It's like, oh my God, that is the time in history. I don't know if it's her looking into the future or really just magnifying the fact that history repeats itself, but that's where I'm at right now. It's like, I did a video on the top 10 social media posts that really kind of like stayed with me, that was thought-provoking, etc. And there was one friend that said, if you are a white friend who hasn't said anything about what's going on in our country right now, I'm unfriending you and I don't want anything to do with you. Much love, but that's where I'm at. It kind of hit home with this last sentence. It says, there's no more fence. People who want to be on the fence, there is no more fence. There is no, I'm going to stay quiet and I'm going to, try not to offend anybody, but I'm going to keep quiet. And there is none of that anymore. I think a lot of people are just so fed up. There is no neutral place. And I'm thinking to myself, are we in a current civil war? Are we like reliving past American history of the Civil War, like in this book, where, at the stage in this book right here, it's like, and I know it's no longer the North versus the South. Right now it's just, or white versus black. It's not that anymore, I don't think. It's more everybody versus racism, which is great. That's phenomenal. I love that. But how we're kind of like still in this battle, and how defining what racism is part of getting to the solution. So again, racism is no longer a single act of malintent across race. And again, everyone has bias, everyone has prejudice, everyone can be discriminatory or have these preconceived notions, one versus the other. That is everybody. So a black person can be prejudiced versus another person that's not black, etc., etc. But as far as power and legal authority, like Dr. Robin DiAngelo states, that is what transforms everybody's prejudice into racism. So the fact that the white collective has power and legal authority and a history of control and dominance, that transforms one white person's prejudice into racism that black people don't have the benefit of or have the same definition. So my prejudice can be just as evil and vindictive, and I can say, I don't want you ever coming to my shop again because you're white. But the fact that the police, the judge, the courts are overwhelmingly in favor of the white collective, so that transforms one person's prejudice into racism, and mine is just prejudice that can be very evil and horrible, but that is the difference. So to claim that everybody's racist isn't factual, because the police, the judge, historically the laws that created this land doesn't support me, and for a long time never viewed me as human. So we don't have the same momentum and strength behind our preconceived notions. So that is something you have to wrestle with. That is the difference. But also the fact that I was talking to Spencer. If you haven't been introduced to Spencer, read the essay that I wrote titled Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata introduces Spencer, who's a relative who's in deep denial of his blackness and wears the lens of whiteness and takes it off when it's convenient to him. So on the one hand, he's very aware and conscious of the state of Black America, but on the other hand, he's in deep denial of some personal issues and his need or his want to be looked at as the not one of the bad ones. So anyway, so I was talking to Spencer and he said something on the lines of, let's take the example of George Bush and the current president. George Bush wasn't racist because he didn't say anything racist. That's what makes him different from our current president. This is what Spencer said. I repeat, Spencer, a Black man, said George W. Bush isn't racist or wasn't racist because he never said anything racist. And that's what makes him different from our current president. Hey, if you want to see the full video, head over to patreon.com, make a pledge, and get full access. Hurry, I'll see you over there. Bye.